here with you with another episode of the Equity Accelerator podcast. Thank you so much for joining us out there in the internet world, where we want to talk about building equity in your mortgage business, in your real estate business, any area of life where you can build equity. We want to talk about that, and that's what we're here to do. I myself am a mortgage originator with Sierra Pacific Mortgage. I'm based in the Portland, Oregon marketplace. Love helping home buyers manage their equity, make great decisions around should you or shouldn't you refinance? How should you buy this house? That's kind of what I'm all about. And you and I take it out and we chop it up once a week and come up with different ideas and different things that are just on my mind. And you're just been a great conversation partner for me.
Yeah, man.
All these months. And yeah, here we are again.
We're rocking it. I love it. We got momentum. I was fired up last episode, and I think we'll get fired up this time too. I don't know. Maybe it's just our chemistry. I just get fired up when I'm around you.
Well, I get fired up around you. I think we spin each other up a little bit. I think it's fun. Yeah. One of the things that I was telling you a story. We always start by telling stories before we hit record. So we kind of figure out kind of what our, where we're trying to land the conversation. And I was telling you a story about an open house that I did with a partner agent of mine a couple weeks ago in a great neighborhood. It was a really high-end property. And it occurred to me that a huge problem that a lot of these prospective home buyers were running into was they didn't really know how to buy this house. This was like a $900,000 house. And, it's not a first-time home buyer house. And I think a really underserved segment of our marketplace is what I call second-time home buyers. Everyone has a first-time home buyer class, or they have a first-time home buyer presentation, and it's super exciting and fun. And because I love doing it too. I love working with first-time home buyers.
Yeah.
And I think I'm pretty good at it too, because I recognize I'm not just selling a mortgage to this person. I'm really selling the whole paradigm of home ownership.
Yeah.
And really educating them on the tax benefits and educating them on how mortgages work and how principal is reduced and how you manage your payment over time, how mortgage insurance works, all of the real big broad strokes concepts. I love laying that out for people. But then when someone shows up and they already know all that stuff, but they may have forgotten it, they haven't done it in a while. They haven't sold a house. Maybe they've never sold a house. Maybe this is the first house they bought is 10 years ago.
Yep.
And they've built up a ton of equity. And they're like, man, I don't know if I can, there's really only so many things you can do. So I'm putting together an action plan, like one of those guides that we talked about, for people in this situation, a system. So when people show up at an open house like this, I can say, look, I specialize in helping people buy not just first-time home buyers, but I specialize in people buy the next house. And there's a lot of ways we can skin this cat. We can do a contingent offer. We can do potentially a non-contingent offer, and we can potentially keep your house, turn it into a rental, and buy the next house. And all of them have costs and benefits, and just a matter of mapping which path fits your life right now.
Does the workbook help map it out? Like, walk me, what's the system do?
Yeah, the system is really just that I have, there's basically 4 different tracks you can take. And each track, has step 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
Here's the benefit of doing, the benefit of doing this is, the benefit of a contingent sale, for instance, is that it's the most cost efficient, right? You sell the house, you pay the realtors, you free up all the equity, and you can move it all into the next property. You can move all that equity. You can pay off some or all, and that's an opportunity for the financial transition plan to talk about taking that equity, making sure we're, sometimes putting all of it in the next property isn't necessarily the most savvy thing to do.
Right.
But we can take, the fact is we're not, the reason it's so efficient is that the alternative to that would be to buy the next house first, and then you own 2 houses, and then you sell that house after you move, and you backfill the equity after you sell, right? And then you can reorganize your financing after you liquidate the original house.
Yeah.
So it gets complicated fast, as you can tell.
Yeah, there's a lot of
so there's
scenarios,
so the contingent offer Obviously you only ever have one house at a time. If you do a non-contingent offer, you may be holding two houses at once for a
Contingent just means like it's contingent. Me buying this house is contingent on me selling my first house. That's what
correct.
contingent
That's
offer
exactly
is,
right. So it's like, I don't qualify to buy this house, or I don't want to buy this house until this other house is sold.
Right.
That loan's paid off and I freed up all this money to put down on this house. So
Right.
in slower, more normal markets, that's totally normal. That's what people expect. If they put $1 million house on the market, they expect, well, someone's going to have to sell their house to push into this house.
Right.
But with what's been happening the last 3-4 years, with the market being so insane with inventory shortages and low rates, and there's all kinds of different ways to buy that house non-contingent, right?
Yeah.
And another efficient way to do a non-contingent sale is just to sell your house first, put the money in the bank, and then get temporary housing, right?
Right. Yeah. Right.
And then you just move the house, and you can move the money into the next purchase. You show up, buy the next house, and you wait for the right one to show up.
Right.
So financially, that is efficient because you're not carrying two houses at once.
Yeah.
And you're not incurring huge financing fees for borrowing more than you would otherwise need to. But you have to move twice. And for some people, that's not an option.
Deal breaker. Yeah.
So
that's it. I think
it's not for everybody. In fact,
yeah,
that's probably the least common outcome in these situations, even though I think it's super smart. Just people just don't have the stomach to move twice when they have kids and pets and all that stuff. It's
work.
It's like, it's a lot to manage. And then the other way is to do what I call staggered financing, where you, and I kind of alluded to it at first, where you show up to buy the next house, non-contingent on sale of that house. You're also not turning it into a rental. But this is, not everybody can do this. You have to have enough income to support the new debt and the old debt at the same time. So this puts a lot of pressure on your income, and also puts pressure on your assets. Where's the down payment going to come from if you're not selling that house? We can do bridge financing. We can do a line of credit on the departing residents and kind of take a little advance on equity and put it down on the next house. Again, it gets pretty complicated to, all of a sudden you blink and you've got 4 mortgages happening at once. But then when you sell the other house, you pay off the old mortgage, maybe old 2 mortgages, and then you pay off one of the second mortgages you get to buy the next house. Because sometimes it makes sense to line up a first and a second mortgage on the next purchase.
Yeah.
And the second mortgage will be the dollar amount that we estimate will be how much cash you free up once you sell the original house. And then you pay that loan to 0.
This is like ninja level borrowing.
I know. We started talking about it before, and it seemed like it was going to be a really good idea to have this conversation, but now I'm getting so technical so fast.
Well, I think I like it actually, because I think to your point from our last episode on brand equity accelerating, I think a lot of times people miss the complexity and the value in the conversation. I think we just like, oh, we'll just talk to my lender or just talk to my preferred vendor. But there's a lot when you're working at advanced levels and you're intelligent about your using mortgages as a financial tool. These are the kind of conversations that need to happen. I actually like that you're saying it, because it lets us into, there is a whole other language and paradigm or frame of mind for how to borrow. And most of us just aren't exposed to it. So we didn't even know to ask for it,
Right. And you bought the house, you were sold on becoming a homeowner, and now you're going to buy the next house. Your family's growing, it's getting bigger. And now you're just sort of like, wait, this is scary. And when I talk to people, not only, there's another thing, they're pretty comfortable too. They're like, I'd like to have a better house, but at what cost? It's like, do I have to? Maybe we could just remodel a little bit, or maybe we could give it another year. And a lot of what's resisting is not only do you have a smaller mortgage because you bought the house 10 years ago, but that mortgage may be 3%, 3.5%.
Right.
And now they're looking at today's rates, which are still great, but you're going to be borrowing more, and the cost of funds has gone up. A lot of these people are really buttoned up in their existing borrowing schemes. And there's a natural resistance to level up in the marketplace there's like sticker shock, right?
Right.
And I think one of the big opportunities to help smooth that path is to show them if they've got, okay, you've got a great mortgage, but maybe you've got a couple car payments, a student loan, some credit card debt, you know, and they have a ton of home equity. And once they sell, you know, it never made sense for them to refi potentially because it's not that much debt.
Right.
But, you know, and the rates have just gone up. So it just didn't quite pencil out. Maybe they knew they were going to move in a few years.
Yeah.
But with, you know, active liability management, we can take stock of all their debts, show them not just taking all their equity and putting it down in the next house, but taking all their equity, strategically paying off certain debts that don't necessarily have to be paid off, but maybe that frees up their cash flow to where,
right,
hey, maybe borrowing $150,000 more isn't that much more expensive than what I'm doing right now.
Right.
Because, but it's a lot more mortgage debt, but I have a lot more strategic kind of cash flow thing put into place.
I can speak to that. We had, I would say we probably had 5 or maybe even 10 different credit lines. And our interest rates were like credit cards, like, and our interest rates on those were decent, right? I mean, not good, decent, like hefty.
Right. And decent for the bank.
Yeah. And I would say, like, if you combined all of our monthly payments on those credit lines, you know, we're upwards of $1,000. If you, right. And then you take a mortgage on $150,000 house and you're looking at what, like 1,200?
I don't know. Yeah. $900 maybe.
$900. I mean, there you go. Right. Like, we were paying it, and it wasn't even like the balance of those cards wasn't $150,000 in credit debt. It just was the interest charge, right? Caused us to make a bigger payment that if it had put into a mortgage at a what's the rate right now? Like 4.5, 6, 5?
Yeah, 4.25, 4.5. Yeah.
So at 4.5 would have been way better than interest,
you know.
Of course, right? But would have been way better than 19% or whatever my credit card was, you know.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, and that's, you know, that's the beauty of owning a house is that one, you know, a lot of people, particularly first-time home buyers, I have to really remind them. And I know we're talking about second-time home buyers here, but I had a meeting earlier today where I had a client who's pretty sophisticated. She's an attorney, but she had never bought a house. And she, you know, we're looking at a low down payment. It's a pretty big mortgage with some mortgage insurance, and she can afford it, but she's getting a little bit, you know, sticker shock on the total payment. I've said, look, this is just what it is right now, right? We always get the best loan we can get for you at the time you close and fund that loan. And then as we keep in touch with you over time, we're going to, you know, your equity position is going to grow. It's going to develop. The mortgage market's going to be up and down. Hopefully we'll have an opportunity to keep rates at or better than what you've got. Maybe we can refinance you into something 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now that trims $200, $300, $400 off your mortgage payment. I've seen it happen over and over and over again. And so I guess it's important to remind people that this is all so dynamic and subject to change in the future. And if something better comes along, you get the better thing. Right. And if something better doesn't come along, then you got the best thing.
Right. That's so good. That made me think of, like, your mortgage is not a death sentence. You know, it's like, you know, your mortgage is simply a vehicle. It's a financial tool that can, you know, the tool.
Right. And it's all relative. And like people that had 5.25 on their 30-year fix were patting themselves on the back for years. Right. And then it became 4.25 and they all refied. Right. And then it became 3.25 and they all refied again. And then now it's back up to 4.25 and all the 3.25 people are just like, oh man, I'm in great shape. But the 4.25 people are like, 4.25 is pretty good. I'm happy with that.
And all that time, their equity, I mean, you know, it always depends on the market, but, you know, real estate markets will 8 to 12 years at a time can appreciate. And oh
man, we're seeing things double in that period of time, right?
It's crazy. So I think if I think about second-time home buyers, like, there's just I'm trying to summarize this for myself. There's a lot of scenarios. I think sometimes second home buyers would think, well, I don't know. I like the $900,000 house. I don't know if I can do it. It's been a long time. I don't know. And I think
the thing is the second time home buyer, it's tricky because first time home buyers are hungry for information, and second time home buyers, I think, are potentially overconfident. They're like, oh, I've done this before. I know what to do. right?
Mm.
But there's a whole different set of problems that
Yeah.
when you get up close to it that they had never considered, never thought of.
And opportunities, maybe.
Yeah. Big opportunities to make a great decision, or an opportunity to, screw it up and leave a bunch of money on the table.
Right. That's actually a really good point, because I feel like when you're at the age of doing the second time home buying, like you don't want to be like messing up the financial scenario. Like you're trying to build momentum at that age. You're not trying to like sabotage momentum at that age. And I think your mortgages, like you said, like you could screw it up if you just opened up that app, that mortgage app, and tried to get a loan that way, and nobody's having this intelligent conversation with you.
Yeah, they're like, oh yeah, you qualify for that. Cool. or worse yet, you don't qualify for this,
right,
until you sell your house, right? But they hadn't taken I think it's the equity management piece is more important.
Yeah.
In this stage, there's a lot more at stake,
right,
and there's a lot more there's a lot more choices, a lot more options for how to do it.
Right. So good. Well, there it is, James. I know a couple of things. If somebody listening to this is a second-time home buyer, wants to be a second-time home buyer, or a third-time or a fourth-time home buyer, they can reach out to you, right, and learn and have this conversation.
Absolutely. You can always get a hold of me at my web. The easiest way, if you're listening to this, I have a really snappy URL. It's pdxhomeloan.com, and that's all things James Adair's mortgage business.
Mm-hmm.
So go there. You can fill out the little form will show up. You can click on a button and fill out the form, and I'll call you back right away.
Mm-hmm.
My phone number's there. So go to the website and just find my phone number. You can email me, james@pdxhomeloan.com. And for that second-time home buyer, would love to get you in the right position. And a lot of times we have a conversation, we set up a line of credit, and maybe you don't buy the second home for another year or so. Like there's a lot more preparation, benefit a lot from prep in setting up that second home buy. It's not as immediate of a thing in most cases.
So that just brings up for me, because then even homeowners now who aren't maybe ready to, they don't think they're ready to buy right now, but you can still have an active equity management conversation with James and look at
100%. Would love to do that. I'm totally geared up for that. That's my favorite thing. And I know, I have 2 daughters, and I know must have been 2013, 2014 when they were just like little toddlers, and we were living in our house and everything was great. But in my mind, I just was like imagining them as teenagers needing space and needing their own bathroom and all that stuff. And I'm like, I don't think this is going to work for me in 5 years. I think we're going to have to make a move. And I knew there was a limit to that house.
Yeah.
And sure enough, we bought another house and moved in 2016. So they're still preteen, but we made the move and bought a house that we can really grow into.
Nice.
At that time. So
awesome.
I know that second purchase, there's quite a bit of lead time that goes into that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's awesome. pdxhomeloan.com. You guys can reach James there. James, thanks again, man. Always cranking it out of the park. We'll catch you next time. And until then, take care.
All right. See you next week.
Yeah.